made battery electric cars for over 7 years. He now enjoys sharing his electric vehicle experience with others. So I've talked long enough. So I'd like just to once again welcome Tim and say over to you, Tim.
Thank you very much, Janice. Now let's see if I can get our presentation here. Hopefully that's visible for everybody. You'll stop me if it isn't, I'm sure. But thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here today. I'm looking forward to especially talking to this Probus Club. Through the startup today, I realized that this is a car-oriented. We've got some car people here, which is very unusual and quite a welcome thing. I'm going to be talking about or answering the question, should your next car be electric? And I hope by the end of the presentation to convince you that that's a good idea. And I'd like to start out with a little bit of history, just to point out, if you aren't already aware, that electric cars actually aren't anything new. As it turns out that at the turn of the century, electric cars actually outsold gasoline cars by a pretty good margin. And it wasn't until a fellow by the name of Henry Ford came along and brought the cost of cars, gasoline cars, way down, that people began to switch. And by the mid-30s, electric cars were pretty much gone. If you jump ahead about, roughly 100 years or so, you might know a little bit about this story. General Motors actually produced a 100% battery electric vehicle. They called it the EV1, and this was in the late 90s. People loved the EV1, but then something rather unusual happened.
Finally tonight in California, an environmentally friendly car is fueling a passionate debate. General Motors wants to take the EV1 out of commission, but some very dedicated drivers are resisting. Here's Bill Redeker.
No pistons, no valves, no exhaust. It's all electric and fast.
It's very powerful. I mean, 0 to 60 in less than 9 seconds is pretty good.
But the EV1, General Motors' pollution-free rechargeable car, is being scrapped.
I love it. I love it. I'm so sad. I'm not going to have it for the rest of my life.
GM never sold the EV1, it only leased them.
When GM introduced the EV1, California was setting the toughest auto pollution standards in the nation. 10% of all cars sold here this year were to be zero-emission vehicles. But California dropped those standards after being sued by automakers.
GM no longer had to produce the EV1. And when we asked EV1 drivers to tell us what they thought, nearly 24 showed up.
And we are not going to just stand here. We're going to keep demanding that they build these cars again.
Anybody else feel that way?
GM says that won't happen. It has pulled the plug. EV1 enthusiasts are furious.
These are perfectly functional cars that are being taken off the road.
Every single person who's driven the car wants one. I can't even tell you the price of gas. I don't know what the gallon of gas. I can care less. It doesn't affect me.
It will when the last of the leases expire later this year, and GM's car of the future becomes a relic of the past. Bill Redeker, ABC News, Los Angeles.
And how sad was that? So all of those beautiful cars that people loved so much and just didn't want to give back were in fact all collected, and they were crushed. I think there are a couple survivors. One, Jay Leno, I believe, has one, and there may be one or two in a few museums around that don't actually run anymore. But that was the end. And there are a lot of interesting stories about this. And if you're interested in learning more, there are two really good documentaries. One is called Who Killed the Electric Car? And then there's a second one called Revenge of the Electric Car. And I believe both of those are available on Netflix and or YouTube if you subscribe. But I'm here to tell you today that gas cars are indeed becoming obsolete. And there are a lot of reasons. I'm going to show you a few of the reasons why I make that rather bold statement. And starting with an image. And I think this image begins to explain why it is that gasoline cars are gradually going to go away. So this is a typical 400 horsepower, which is a pretty big engine, 400 horsepower combustion engine. See, and this, if anybody is a car enthusiast, this I think came from a Porsche, but it has typically over 200 moving parts. And an interesting factoid about gas and diesel cars is they're not terribly efficient. In fact, only about 25% of the energy in the gasoline, in the fuel, makes it to those wheels to turn the wheels. The other 75% of the energy in the gasoline essentially is lost through a little bit through friction and a lot just through heat. So it's not terribly efficient. But here's another way you can put 400 horsepower into a vehicle, and it's the electric way. Now, the image here of the electric motor on your screen is about proportionally the right size compared to a gasoline engine. It's about the size of a good sized watermelon. And it only has one moving part. And the other great thing is that electric motors are incredibly efficient. So it is able to put 88% of the energy from the electricity, from the battery, directly to the wheels of the car to move it, compared to only 25% for a gas car. Now, if you look at those two pictures and you think about it, which one of those two powertrains do you think probably costs more to manufacture? And if you think about it over its lifetime, which one of those two power plants do you think probably costs more to maintain? And finally, you know, the lifespan of these two different engines or power plants is very, very different in favor of the electric. And by the way, the electric uses no gas or oil. So that's one reason why I say electric cars are taking over and gas cars are going away. A second main reason is simply because of what government's doing around the world. And you've probably heard a lot about this or bits and pieces about this. At the moment, there are 14 countries that have laid out a timetable that shows the date after which they will no longer allow the sale of new gas and diesel engines. And they're doing it for two reasons. They're doing it, of course, because of all the concerns over climate, but they're also doing it because of what we're finding, we've discovered in major cities and urban centers. When you have a lot of gasoline and diesel cars buzzing around in a small downtown area like Toronto, you're concentrating all of those emissions. It's not just carbon emissions, CO2, it's a lot of very deadly pollutants are being released in a small area. And it's now well known and documented that hundreds, literally hundreds of people, for example, in the city of Toronto are dying each year as a direct result of pollution from vehicles. And many more are made sick, seriously ill. So governments are putting pressures on the manufacturers of vehicles to do something about that. The third reason that I say gas cars are going away, and this is probably the most compelling one for most people, because not everybody is tuned in to the health concerns and climate concerns, but it's simple economics. Electric cars are so inexpensive to operate and to maintain compared to gas cars. And they are more expensive to purchase today, but that is changing quite rapidly. And pretty soon, a comparable gas and electric car will have the same sticker price. And when that day even gets close, it's game over for gas because nobody would ever want one. So all of these things I'm talking about are moving towards the same outcome. Essentially, it's the demise of the internal combustion engine. And I have to make a little confession here. I've used this slide many, many times before I actually realized that if you look at the label on it, the letters, they spell kaput. So that's entirely appropriate. So in terms of my own experience, I am with, I'm going to talk a lot about Tesla for some very good reasons, but and I'm a fanboy, self-confessed. I'm a big Tesla fan, but there are lots of other really good electric cars on the market and coming on the market. So it's not all about Tesla. But I'm also with an organization called the Electric Vehicle Society. And think of it as a car club that promotes clean transportation. We're now right across Canada, and it's a wonderful organization. And I have a couple of roles there. I run one of the chapters, the local chapters, and I also operate webinars, a webinar for the EV Society once a month. Our meetings are free, so if you're interested in electric cars after my talk, please go to the EV Society website and register to come to a meeting. They're virtual, of course, or listen to a webinar. We have some very interesting guest speakers, and it's fun to listen to. They're only an hour long, but you'll learn a great deal. So I hope you'll look for that. Also, from my own experience, as Janice said, I started driving an electric car back about 7 years ago. It was 2013 with a Tesla Model S, which is the dark sedan there. Big sedan, beautiful car, loved that car. I did eventually sell it to a friend who is still a friend, which is a good sign. And I purchased the car I'm driving today, which is a 2017 Tesla Model X. Now that's a bigger SUV type of vehicle. And with my 2017 Model X, I have on a full charge 475 kilometers of driving. Now we have a new addition to the family. So my wife finally disposed of her gas car. And only a week ago, we purchased the Tesla Model Y, which is a new model they've put out. It's the smaller, call it a crossover SUV, a smaller car. But the model, it is a beautiful car, just really liking it. The Y has a range now of 510 kilometers on a charge. So pretty remarkable. And if you're driving anywhere, you're going to need to stop anyway before you ever run out of electricity. And there are lots of charging, which I will talk about. So I heard you talk about a car cruise event at Allegiant. Well, years ago, I started taking my electric car to these car cruises. I didn't know anything about them before, but I started taking my car to them. And of course, you know that these events are typically populated with really neat old cars that have been lovingly restored by their owners. And it's a social event. You sit out in the lawn chair and chat with your fellow car lovers. But I pulled in, and of course, the first question is, what are you doing here with that shiny new thing? And I explained, well, this is really kind of a novelty car, special interest. It doesn't use any gasoline whatsoever. And so when I did that, the questions really started to come. And I suspected that maybe some of you would have some of these same questions and like to ask. First of all, where do you charge it? Because you know where the gas stations are. But when you think about it, with an electric car, you're going to charge it at home 95% of the time. Now, I know there are issues with condos and apartments, so we can talk a little bit about that maybe later, but 95% of the time, you're just going to plug it in the same way you do your cell phone, your smartphone, or your iPad. You plug it in the morning, it's full, and away you go, and you just do that over and again. It's very convenient. The next question is, well, how long does it take to charge? I mean, you can fill up your gas car in no time, and you have to wait around for the car to charge. It can't be very good. And the answer really is, if you think about it, if you're charging at home 95% of the time, it really doesn't matter, because you're probably in the house doing other things or sleeping. But on a longer trip, it's getting down to between 15 and 20 minutes on a fast charger. And I'll talk again more about charging because it's important. Battery life. Now, this is an interesting one, especially with the latest news. Battery life on these cars, they've been out now for a number of years, and we're seeing easily 250 to 400,000 kilometers of battery life on these cars, which is remarkable. The announcement that you're going to hear in the next, if you haven't already been hearing about it, in the next month or so, that they've now created a battery that will go over 1 million miles, not kilometers, but miles. Now I'm not talking about on a charge, of course. I'm talking about its lifespan. So you're going to wear out the car. Today's batteries will wear out the car before you need to replace the batteries. So it's pretty exciting from that front. So I want to give you, we're going to do a poll. Now this is just a curiosity. I'd like to know what you're thinking, seeing if you're paying attention to my talk. And I looked this up, according to Statistics Canada's latest 2020 update, how many charging locations do you think there are in the province of Ontario? And I'm going to put up the poll. And you'll see it on your screen. And those are the options. Now, if you would look through, decide how many charging locations you think there are, and you can click on your answer. I know this presentation is being recorded. The poll results will not show on the recording, just so you know. So I'll read them out quickly. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Over 80% of you now have voted, and it's very interesting. I'm going to end the poll, and I'm going to show you what the room believes. So 9% think there are 7,800 places where you can charge electric cars in the province. 48%, half of the room roughly thinks it's 12,000, and the other half thinks it's 130,000. And nobody thought it was 2.7 million locations to charge. Okay, so those are the results. I'm going to stop sharing. Now, this is, you're about to see why I like keeping everybody on mute during my presentation, because if you weren't on mute, there's going to be a lot of groaning and complaining and grumpiness. The correct answer, how many places are there to charge in the province of Ontario, is 2.7 million. And now you're going, oh, no way, no way. Where did I say electric car owners charge 95% of the time? Right, at home. And according to Statistics Canada, there are 2.7 million fully detached single-family dwellings in the province of Ontario. And as far as I know, they all have electricity. And so you can charge at home. And I know you think that's a trick question. It's not really a trick question. What I'm trying to do here is help people think differently about electric cars. We are all so used to going to a gas station and filling up and driving for a week and then going to another gas station. Why wouldn't you count your home if that's where you charge 95% of the time? It's so just a different way of thinking. By the way, Statistics Canada also counts 12,000 gas stations in the province of Ontario. So in fact, there are more than I've stated. So, and I'll come back to that a little bit. EVs are really better. Electric vehicles are better than gas cars. They're faster, quieter. They're very inexpensive to maintain. When you fill up at home, when you charge at home 95% of the time, the rough cost would be equivalent to buying gasoline for about 30 cents a liter. We think of electricity as expensive, and it kind of is in our life, but compared to gasoline, it's a really inexpensive fuel, less than half the cost, even at today's really good prices. And a lot of people think, well, you know, I don't want an electric car. I got to mess with it. It's not going to be convenient. It's convenient. It is. And I tried to make this slide to help show just how convenient living and owning an electric car can be. And so I'm going to compare two things. Now, if you're going to fill up, the key thing with a gas car is you don't usually get up in the morning and say, I'm going to get in my car and go and get gas. I need gas, and then come home. You're going somewhere and you're getting gas on the way, right? That's kind of the way that works. So really, you have to leave your route. There probably isn't always a gas station exactly on your route. You're going to drive a little bit out of your way. But we're used to that. That's what we've always done. So it takes time to go through the process of going to a gas station. You got to get out, you got to refuel, you've got to you got to stand there while it fills, and then you're probably going to go and pay and maybe line up, but have to go somewhere and pay for it. And then you have to get back to your car, get out of the gas station, drive out, and then get back on the route to where it was you were originally going, right? That's the way that works. And if you add up the time, I hope you'd think this is fair. I'm saying 9 minutes to fill up your tank, you know, all taken all into account. Could be more, could be less, but hope you think that's a reasonable one. This is what it's like to fill up an electric car. So this is me coming home into my messy garage. And I was coming home anyway, so I haven't taken any time out of my life at this stage. And I'm going to get out. And instead of turning right to go into the house, I actually walk to the rear of the car, and I just pick up the cable, and I press a button on the handle, and it pops a little door open. There we go, plug it in, and now I go into the house. Now I timed that. That's 9 seconds. It took 9 seconds out of my life. When I come out to that car later, it will be filled. So again, the time on that, I'm going to round it up to 10 seconds, and I'm going to say that if you filled up your gas car once a week, which is a fair bit of driving. That's kind of what I did when I was still working. That would come to 8 hours of your time a year at 9 minutes per. So 8 hours of your time. If with your electric car, you plug it in every day when you're finished with the car, which is what they always recommend, just leave it plugged in when you're not using it. That would be 365 times, and that adds up to an hour of your life every year. So much more time spent. It's way more convenient. The convenience doesn't end there, because we live in this beautiful country called Canada. While you're filling up your gas car probably 3 or 4 months out of the year, you look a lot like this poor guy. I mean, it's not always a pleasant experience, is it, standing out there? And while you're out there for 9 minutes or whatever doing that, I've plugged in, I've already gone in the house. You know what? I've got my favorite pink socks on. And what you don't see is that I've got my favorite beverage beside me. So you're still out there freezing. I'm already in the house going about my business. It really is convenient in so many, in time and in comfort. Hope that kind of demonstrates it. Electric vehicles are also better because if you don't have that big gas engine, then you've got lots of cargo space. If you design the car to be electric, a lot of the early electric cars weren't, they were just gas cars converted. But if you design it, you can have a front trunk as well. And this was my first electric car. These are our God kids. And despite the temptation, I never did close the lid on those guys. It was well, they're good kids, really. But anyway, you know how that works. They're good kids. I said, so 95% of the time we charge at home. But we do want to charge, right, if we go on a trip, if we go to Florida, if we want to go on a longer road trip. Fortunately, not all chargers are the same speed. At home, it's a bit slower, but you don't really care, right? Because you're in the house and sleeping and whatever. But on a long road trip, you want fast chargers. Good news, PetroCan has completed now, coast to coast, really fast chargers. You can go right across Canada with your electric car and get quick charges. Canadian Tire. I know we have a new member who's with Canadian Tire. Canadian Tire has taken the bold move to also electrify right across the country. And they announced it early this year that they would have it done by the end of this year. I haven't heard an update with COVID. It might be a little bit delayed, but good on them for doing it. Canadian Tire has always been a really good company. And Tesla, of course, they started building only electric cars, and they knew people would be worried about charging and range anxiety and all those sorts of things. So they built their own system too. They started building it right at the beginning. And they call them superchargers. They're just fast chargers. And they can charge a car, fill it up to about 75% in under 20 minutes. The new ones are even faster, like 7 minutes puts 100 kilometers of driving back on the car. And if you look at where Tesla's charging network is, this is what it looks like. For the record, when I bought my first Tesla car, there was one charger in Canada. They had one Tesla fast charger. This is not to say these are the only places you can charge. There are many more chargers of different types and sizes all over the place, tens of thousands of them now. And if you don't know about them, it's because you don't drive an electric, so you're not aware, but they're out there. And if you looked at one of these Tesla fast chargers, this is what, if you zero in on it, this is kind of what they look like. They're not all formatted exactly the same. This particular one, I think it has 16 charging bays. So you simply pull up and plug in, and it's all done seamlessly and wirelessly. The cost varies. If you bought an early model or you buy a used Tesla, it can be free for life. My car charges anywhere on their system at no charge as long as I own that car. If you do have to pay, if you buy a more recent Tesla, you do pay, but it's less than gas. And remember, please, you're only using these things 5% of the time. Really think about how often you drive 500 kilometers or 400 kilometers in a day. No other cars can use this. Tesla has offered the system to other car manufacturers, but they are doing their own thing. So there'll be different charging standards out there. Charge these cars anywhere. okay? You can plug it into a regular household outlet. It's going to be really slow, but you can do it. A dryer, a stove outlet, you know, you can. The reality is with these cars is that the charger is built into every electric car. The charger is in the car. And all you're doing is plugging into electricity and to different types of plugs. So we talk about, did you put a charger in your garage? Well, no, I just put a fancy car plug in my garage, such as this EV plug here. One other innovation I'd need to talk about is that Tesla's done. Every car that they've manufactured, and this is where they're leading the way with the industry, these sorts of things. Every Tesla car comes connected to the internet, 24/7. It's just connected to the internet. And so what is that all about? Why is that important? Well, it does a lot of things. First of all, you get improvements sent to the car that makes the car better and better. That first car I showed you with the two kids in the front, I had that car for 4.5 years. It was a different car when I sold it. They had beamed out so many improvements to the car over that time, and they're free. They just come like your phone gets updated or your computer gets updated, just come to you. And it was a different car when I sold it. It was so much better. And they continue to do that with my cars today. This over-the-air internet connection allows the car and the navigation system to know where all the charging stations are. So if you go on a long trip, it figures it all out for you. It says, oh, you can drive for 3 hours and then you're going to have to stop. Here's where you can stop. Here's how long you need to stay there. And guess what? On that Tesla big network, it even tells you how many other cars are there charging in real time. So if the 16 bay one that you just saw in the picture, if 12 of them were being used, you would see that in your car before you ever got there. You would know how busy they are. And it's pretty amazing. So you're very comfortable driving to Florida or wherever you want to go. You can go anywhere. And of course, with this connection, you can have an app on your phone. And the Tesla app is used for many, many things. Of course, you can preheat it and cool it, but you can track it. Now, this is a double-edged sword. Don't think badly of me for saying this, please. But when I got our first Tesla, and my wife would borrow it to go shopping, I have to be quiet. She's in the next room. If I could sit in my lazy boy here, take out my phone, open the Tesla app, and I could see her driving my car. It shows up on a little Google map, and I can see her driving along where she is in real time, and there's a little bubble beside the car telling me how fast she's driving. Now, I know that sounds kind of creepy, but guess what? I happened to marry a really smart lady, and I think we were 3 days into ownership before she marched into the room and said, hey, look, dear, I put that app on my phone too. So you know what that meant, right? She could see where I was going all the time, so it was fair. But it does make it pretty difficult to steal the car. Also, with this phone app, get this one. You can now summon it. You can summon the car. So if I go to the shopping mall or wherever, I park the car out the back of the parking lot and go do my business. If I come out of the shopping mall and it's pouring rain, I can just take out the phone app, press a button, and the car will come to where I am. It will navigate the parking lot. It puts on a signal if it needs to turn, to maneuver to get to me, and it pulls up to where I'm standing. It's pretty amazing. That's kind of the early step of what I'm going to talk about next, which is soon there'll be a software update, one of these software updates that'll be pushed out that will let the car drive without any input from me. Already does that almost totally, but anyway, it's coming.
Well, the next pizza you have delivered to your house could come without one very important thing: a driver. Domino's and Ford are testing a plan to deliver pizzas with self-driving cars. Say what? Yeah, customers can track the delivery through GPS. Instead of a knock at the door, they'll get a text message letting them know the pizza arrived. For now, the self-driving deliveries are only being tested. Did you hear that?
You put a code in, and then it opens, and you can take the pizza, but you have to have the code to get to the pizza?
But what if they forget the drinks? Then
what if it's cold out? It's a nor'easter.
Just to say, I'm not
to be
making this stuff
continued.
up, right? But there are some issues to work out. It's not going to be simple getting this to the final stages of full self-driving cars. But I can assure you that all the major car companies are racing to be the first doing it. And interestingly enough, every Tesla built since October of 16 comes with high definition cameras, ultrasonic sensors, radar out the front to see through fog and snow, and a computer to process all that data. And it's just software updates and so on that will bring it to reality. So autonomous driving, wow. What's that going to mean? It's profound. If you think about what this means to society, it's enormous. For example, I think the most important thing, fewer deaths. So as amazing as this sounds, 40,000 people are killed in the United States every year in car accidents. 40,000. And that doesn't even count the number of people who are, seriously injured and disabled. And so if self-driving cars could cut that number in half, what a remarkable thing that would be. Tons of changes. Another one that I'll just throw it out there. How about this one? A child born today might never ever learn to drive a car. Never need to, let's put it that way. They'll never need to. They may choose to, but if they choose to drive, just as people still choose to have horses and ride them, they don't use them to get to work. But if you're a car collector or enthusiast, you might choose to drive, you're gonna pay a lot in insurance, because insurance companies will know that the car is so much safer and much lower risk, right, than a human driver. So I'm coming to the end. Perfect, I think I have 3 minutes, but to answer the question, why should your next car be electric? Well, here are the reasons. First of all, trust me, they are fun and they are convenient to live with. Way more fun and enjoyable than a gas car. They get better over time. Now, can you say that about your gas car? It gets better over time. There is a low total cost of ownership. I mean, I know that they're more expensive upfront right now, but actually if you drive a reasonable amount, they're not more expensive in total. Not when you take into the account no oil changes, cheap fuel, and very little in the way of maintenance. And the next reason, of course, is our planet really, really is in trouble. And electric, or at least transportation, cars and trucks, light trucks, account for nearly 25% of CO2 emissions causing climate change. We often say, well, oh, it's a big deal. What can I do about it? Well, here's what you can do about it. You can switch to an electric car. And not only are you doing something good for the environment, you're doing something good for yourself. You're really going to enjoy it. It's a fabulous, fabulous experience. And then finally, you can finally prove to your kids how cool you really are, and your grandkids, right? So there you go. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you for listening to my talk, and I hope you've submitted some questions that we can go through. I will put this up very quickly before we get to any questions that you've entered into the chat. This is just a show of, don't take me to the bank on these prices. As I say, electric cars are a little more expensive. There is a $5,000 federal rebate for these cars that you see with the asterisk beside them. And they are, and I need to update this. This does not even have the new Tesla Model Y showing on it, which is just a little over the 54 number here and has way more range. But yeah, so they're out there, and there are a lot more great cars coming from different companies. You're hearing more and more about it. It's happening, but the time is now. If you happen to be in the market, don't buy a gas car. The resale price is going to be terrible. So I'll stop that. Good.
Well, Tim, thank you very, very much. That was super, super educational and interesting. Your bio did not say what you were the vice president of at 40 Creek Distillery. But I swear, it must have had marketing in there somewhere.
Yeah, I initially I was marketing and sales, but we started out with, I think we had 14 employees at that company when it started in Grimsby. And I was doing sales and marketing, but as it grew, someone else came in as VP of marketing, and I took over solely as VP of sales. So,
yeah. Well, it shows. It shows you're a
Thanks.
great salesman and great marketer. But anyways, I want to get on to some of these questions because yes, we do have questions for you. Some of the questions I think that you have answered. Like one of them was, how much does it cost to have a battery charger installed in your house? And I think that you said that it was basically you could have any electrical outlet.
Yeah, so for it, it's a really good question. It will vary depending on your home. First of all, you can choose to have a simple outlet that you would have. Think of it as you've decided you wanted to put an electric dryer or an electric stove in your garage. So, you know, those little round plugs with the funny prongs.
Right.
Put one of those out there. Now, that costs, I think at the at Home Depot, you're probably going to pay about $40 for that plug. Then you're going to need wiring to go back to where your electrical panel is. That wire can be, you know, it's costly if you have to have a long way to go to where your panel is. And then finally, if you live in an older house that has not been updated, you might only have a 100 amp panel in your house, service panel. And so my aunt just got her first electric, and she had a 100 amp panel. And so she's getting away. She says no problem with it being a little bit slower charge. If you have a 200 amp panel, you're good to go. So the cost can range, I would say, anywhere from $300 to $1,000, depending on how fancy you want and what your situation is.
Great, thank you very much. Is there a stripped down basic Tesla available?
Yeah, so it's still going to be a little bit expensive. The Tesla Model 3, which is the one that we have not owned, but is very similar to the Y. Actually, you put those all together. You know, the Model 3 was supposed to be the Model E, as in elephant, E. And so if you lined all these up, you have the S, the E, the X, and the Y. Yeah? But Ford wouldn't give up the E name. They had that trademark, so I'm going off topic, but it's just a funny story. So Tesla changed the Model E to a Model 3 because the 3 looks like an E, so you can still say sexy. But yeah, so the Model 3 is probably is the least expensive Tesla, and I'm hard pressed to tell you what that costs, but it does come in at a point where you get the $5,000 rebate. So I believe it would still cost you around 45. Somewhere between under 50,000 for that car. But again, remember the maintenance costs. You really have to look at the total cost of ownership, plus the enjoyment factor and the other benefits I mentioned. It's not always just about, I mean, for some people, their budget wouldn't allow it. But if your budget allows it, you're going to have a really great driving experience with any of these electric cars.
Yeah, so and that kind of leads into this other question. The question is, does your car need servicing very often, and what needs to be serviced, and where do you get it done?
So Tesla does have service centers around. You're in Stouffville. I'm trying to think. You might have to come into Toronto proper for that. But the other side of it is that so I go to Oakville. I live in a little place called Carlisle, which is north of Burlington, and I drive to Oakville for that. They also have something a little bit different. They have a Ranger service. And so if you need, or mobile service, if you need something, most of the things that go wrong with an electric car can be fixed in your driveway. And so they have a truck loaded with all the equipment, and they'll just come out and repair your car in the driveway if it needs something like that. Otherwise, you have to go to, I think it's on Lawrence right now would be the closest to Stouffville, but they're opening up more service centers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And another
And
question.
sorry, sorry, Janice, I didn't answer what needs to be serviced. So
Yeah.
on these cars, if you the service interval, like it's 5,000 kilometers, whatever, you need an oil change. So on these cars, they've now reached the point where they don't really say you need to come in unless there's a problem. There's not really too much to do in Canada because of our crappy winters, our difficult winters, I should say. We need to, they recommend bringing them in and let them clean and lubricate the brakes, which you don't use very often, you see, because it has regenerative braking. You take your foot off the accelerator and the electric motor slows the car down. It's generating electricity and putting that back into the battery. But in doing so, it really slows the car down and you're not wearing out any brakes. It's all magnetic. But so the brakes need to be cleaned. Tires are the big expense because you still need to replace tires. Brakes last a long time. That's it. The battery in your fob and your wiper blades and your washer fluid. Those are the only things on an electric car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, and so another question was, who will hold my hand while I figure out the intimacies of these new cars?
Now, it sounds like it's a complicated thing, but trust me, it's really, really simple. They've made these cars so easy to operate that I swear 10 minutes, 15 minutes behind the wheel, even without someone to show you, you would know and love it. My wife has already said she could never go back. And that's what everyone says, it could never go back. Reach out to the EV Society if you are concerned about that. And if I'm around, I'd be glad. We have members right across the country. Somebody will reach out and spend time with you if the dealer won't, wherever you're buying your car. But there's lots of help. We're all here to help. So
that's great. Yeah. And so just curious, because of course we do see electric cars on the road these days. Do you have any idea what the percentage of cars in Canada are that are electric these days?
Canada-wide, it's still, I believe, under 2% on the road. The electric cars are concentrated right now essentially in 3 provinces, BC, Ontario, and Quebec. Not coincidentally, those 3 provinces have had quite substantial incentives programs in place to help people decide to help them purchase electric cars. And so for that reason, those 3 provinces have a pretty good track record of electric vehicle adoption. The growth curve is going up very rapidly on electric purchases. As more price ranges come out and formats, because not everybody wants an SUV, and so as this happens more and more, you're going to just see the adoption skyrocket. And as I said, there is a point coming where if you go out and buy a new shiny gas car, the resale on that is going to be just terrible because nobody will want it because electric cars will be that much cheaper and better to drive. So it's something just to think about.
And I'll just pose one last question so that we'll finish off this segment of our program today. What about the disposal of the batteries at the end of their life? Does it pose any environmental issue at all?
There is an environmental footprint to anything we do, but the batteries, fortunately, first of all, there just hasn't been a lot coming back yet because these darn things are lasting so long. They're not coming back in big numbers at this stage. Eventually, that is the case. They will come back, of course, in larger numbers, but there are two scenarios I just want to describe. One is that the key elements in today's electric batteries, car batteries, are lithium and nickel and cobalt. Cobalt's a nasty thing, and it's nasty because it's expensive, but it's also mined in primarily half of it comes from the Republic of Congo that have some pretty shady practices. And so Apple and people who use a lot of lithium batteries try not to get the cobalt from there, but they pay a lot for it. Cobalt's being weaned out of the battery chemistry and it won't be there. But even now, those three things, the nickel, the lithium, the cobalt, it's still present and totally usable in old spent batteries. It's cheaper to mine those three things out of an old car battery than to mine it out of the ground, and less damaging too. It's number one. Number two, a lot of these batteries, there's that one school of thought that says as these batteries age and become, because they don't just die, right? What happens is they start losing capacity. So your range might be 500 kilometers at the beginning, and after 15 years, 16 years, you're down to 250 kilometers. And if that's not enough, the battery gets retired. Well, that battery is still perfectly good as backup storage for people with solar panels on the roof. So they can charge the battery and use the stationary storage is what it's referring to. But the final thought on that question is that, and we had some pretty smart people recently at our EV societies, PhD guys. The belief is the cost of these batteries is plummeting, and it's going to continue to go down, and that it'll be so cheap to buy an electric car battery in the next few years that using an old one, it's just not going to be worth it. Like the secondary life thing won't happen because new ones will be so inexpensive and better. So anyway, that's a little bit long answer to a simple basic question, but I'll stop talking.
Well, that's great, Tim. It's been such a pleasure listening to your presentation today.
Thank you.
So educational. As I said, you're a great salesman. I think that I may have to put a down payment on an electric vehicle pretty soon.
Well,